So last time we were in Venice. This is the second part of Venezia. The first time we mostly look at the history and some of the main side. This time we'll look more at events of the city, and we'll start with the Acqua Alta, which is the high tide, the water coming from the lagoon. We will talk about gondolas. We'll see together the Carnevale. We'll talk briefly about Giacomo Casanova. And then we'll take a brief look at the Biennale and the PEGGY Guggenheim collection. And then we'll also talk about something that is really dear to me, which is how sustainable is tourism in Venezia right now and what's going to happen after the COVID situation. And then we'll end up with more like funny, scary legends about Venice, which, as you know, it's a haunted city, and we'll see together what you can eat and drink while in Venice. So let's start with the Acqua Alta. The Acqua Alta in Italian means high water. This is a phenomenon that it usually happens between fall and winter. But we only talk about Acqua Alta when the sea level is above 80 centimeters. So when it's above centimeter, we just say that it's a high tide, actually. So the tide level the tide levels depend mostly on two major factors. One is the astronomical component, as you know, the movement of the planets, the sun, and mostly the moon. The other one is a meteorological component, so the precipitation, the quantity of rain, and the presence of a wind that comes directly from Africa and is called the Scirocco wind. Lately, unfortunately, there's a third element that it's an additional factor to the phenomenon of the Acqua Alta, which is the global warming. So the climate change is definitely, with more, precipitation, it adds up to the problem. Another major problem of the city is that Venezia is literally sinking at a rate of 1 millimeter per year. So basically, since in 1 century, it actually sink about 20 centimeters, which is a very scary data that we have. When the Acqua Alta comes from the lagoon, the flooding is not uniform throughout the city. It really depends from the altitude of each zone. It depends from the distance from the channel, from the water, and also the heights of the sidewalk. As you can see from the picture that I put here, there's a lot of parapets. They're built all around the city to allow people, so Venetians and also tourists, to move easily around when the high tide comes in. San Marco Square is one of the area at major risk of flooding. In fact, this picture was taken in San Marco Square. When an Acqua Alta event is forecast, Venetians receive a text message on their phones directly from the Tide Monitoring Center of Venice. And they also got alert by a dedicated system of sirens. That it's probably the best way to know that the Acqua Alta is coming. I'm going to show you a video that show us what happened in November 2019, so a year ago, when an exceptional Acqua Alta invaded the whole city. What you should never do with Acqua Alta in Venice. So I thought it was really funny, The video was talking about the solution for the ACQUA ALTA, which is, as you heard, the M.O.S.E project. M.O.S.E is an acronym for a very complicated word that it means basically an experimental electromechanical device. This project was began in 1987 by the Italian government, and so the video was outdated. It was officially tested with success a couple of weeks ago on Saturday, October 3rd, and it actually worked. So there was a high tide coming, and because of the M.O.S.E, San Marcos Square for the first time didn't float. So it was a good success, and this means that there's hope for Venice. So what I'm going to tell you a little bit more about this project. It's very complicated. It consists of about 78 mobile gates, the ones that you see in this picture, these yellow metal gates. They are able to block the water and offer protection from tides up to 3 meters. So these mobile gates can raise altogether in about 30 minutes. And they protect 3 entry points to the lagoon. They're called Bocca di Porto Lido, Bocca di Malamocco, and Bocca di Chioggia. Over the years, this project has met resistance from like several environmental groups. And it was also, as you heard in the video, surrounded, unfortunately, by many scandals and corruption as well. The budget for this project was of $3 billion. And at the end, it ended up costing over $9 billion to be finished. So there's another very short video that is showing you really well how the system works. So this is definitely a very, very ingenious way to solve the problem, and I'm happy that it's successful so far. Speaking of water in Venezia, it's a must to speak about the gondola. Gondolas are the traditional Venetian rowing boats propelled by the gondolieri, who usually are very funny characters, especially with tourists. The gondola have existed in Venezia since the 11th century. The first official document that describes a gondola is dated 1094, so it's a very ancient tradition in the city. It is estimated that during the 17th and 18th century, there were over 10,000 gondolas in Venezia. Today, there are only around 400. The gondolas were the major means of transportation in Venice, of course, only for nobles and aristocrat families. And today, it's only for tourists. Venetian people don't usually go around with the gondola. They use the vaporetto, which is basically the water taxi in Venezia. The gondolas are flat bottom because of the lagoon, because how the lagoon it's in general, and each part of the gondola has its own name. We'll see in the next slide. We'll see together the iron of the gondola, which is the part in front of the gondolieri. Actually, they're usually made of different woods, sometimes 8 different types of woods. They are about 35 feet long and 5 wide. And the most traditional gondolas are built calculating the weight of the gondoliere, because it's all a matter of balance in the gondola. Then there's these layers of black paint There are about 6 layers at the beginning, and every year the layers are painted for maintenance. The gondola weighs about 500 kilograms, and it takes a full 2 months to build the gondola and an additional month to paint the gondola. But I know that one of the questions that are raised now, it's why the gondola is black. The original gondolas were extremely colorful and heavily decorated. In the pictures that I put on the left of this slide, those are pictures from the historical regatta, which is an historical regatta that happens every first week of September in Venice. You can see how the traditional gondolas were, all colorful and extremely heavily decorated. In the 16th century, it became a way for noble families to show their importance. So the more the gondolas were colorful and decorated, the more important was the family. Now, to put an end to all of this, the Doge in 1609 decided that gondolas were meant to be equal. And they decided that the color of the gondolas from the point on was going to be black, because black was considered the color of elegance. There's a misbelief around the black color of gondolas. Sometimes you may heard that it's because of the Black Plague, but it's a different reason, and that's the one that I explained to you. I'm sorry, I need to go back to the slide. Okay. The gondola, it was, I'm sorry, I'm going to start again. The symbol of the iron of the gondola, which is the part that you see in front of the gondoliere, is very important. You see on the top, it's the head of the Doge. Then you have all these rectangular metal parts that are the different zone of the city of Venice. The 3 little metal things in between are the island of Murano, Burano, and Forcello. And then the whole curve shape is basically the Grand Canal. So if you want to take a gondola ride, right now, you can pay anything between 80 and 100 euro. 80 euro, it's usually for 30 minutes during daytime. If you want to be even more romantic and you want to do a gondola ride at nighttime, you can pay as much as 100 euro. So I was there for my honeymoon. Of course, we did the gondola ride. I have to say that it's really romantic, as they say. So I really recommend if you go there. Definitely one character that was going around with the gondola in Venice was Giacomo Casanova. Casanova was born in Venice in 1725, and then he died in 1798 in Bohemia. He's defined as an Italian adventurer and author of a famous autobiography that is the story of my life. He has become so famous for his often very complicated affairs with women, to the point that today his name is synonymous of a sexual adventurer, or at least someone that you should not trust in general. He had a very adventurous life indeed. Because of these adventures and affairs, he was also arrested in Venice and put in prison, in the same prison that we explore during the first class when we talk about the Bridge of Sighs. So he definitely was able to walk the bridge while he was put in prison at that time. He was able also to escape from prison in 1757 with a pretty crazy plan, breaking through the floor of the prison and then escaping using a gondola. And he also wrote a book about his escape from prison. From this moment on, he was able to travel all over Europe, meeting very interesting and famous characters like Voltaire, like Benjamin Franklin, Catherine the Great, and Rousseau itself. He was very brilliant. What we don't know usually about Casanova is that he had a degree in clerical law. He was a great musician. He played violin really well. And what we probably know is that he was really good at gambling for a part of his life. He was a professional gambler. That was his main income for a while. Casanova began to write his memoir in 1789 in France, creating the first modern autobiography where he reveals all his humanity, his failures, with lots of details. He tells us stories about all his affairs with a big number of women. But you have to keep in mind that these memories are really important for us because they are a source of notion for us. We know a lot of customs and norms that Casanova is telling us with this biography. In 2018, the Casanova Foundation was established in Venezia with the aim of promote and preserve everything that surrounds this interesting character. And if you feel a little bit more adventurous, you can watch the movie by Federico Fellini, a 1967 movie, which is Il Casanova. Definitely, Giacomo Casanova was a big fan of the Carnival, which is the Italian word is Carnevale. Carnevale is a major event, not only in Venice, but in Italy in general. It's a Western Christian festive season that occurs before the liturgical season of Lent, in Italian, Quaresima. Lent begins on Ash Wednesday and ends before Easter Sunday, and is a period of 40 days before Easter Sunday. Carnival includes a lot of public celebrations with parades, with floats and street parties and private parties as well. And it's usually between the end of February and the beginning of March. The word Carnevale derived from Latin carnem, which means meat, and levare, which means remove. And this is because in these 40 days before Easter, Christian people, they were not eating any meat. And that's the reason, and that's the origin of the word Carnevale. According to a legend, the Carnevale started in Venice a long time ago, in 1162, after an important victory of the Venetian Republic over the Patriarch of Aquileia. The legend says that people started to dance for joy and gather in San Marco Square to celebrate the victory. And then from this point on, it became an official celebration. It became really popular, especially during Renaissance. But of course, as a celebration, it has its ups and downs. And in 1797, basically was shut down because Venice at the time was under the French and the Austrians as well. And the festival was canceled and then came back after a very long time, officially in 1979. Masks were always a big part of the tradition of the carnival. Can be made of different materials like leather or porcelain and embellished with all kinds of decoration, especially with glass. And they were used already in the 13th century. Something like funny related to the carnival is that during carnival, everything is allowed. And that's this say in Italian, a carnevale ogni scherzo vale, which means that all jokes are permitted during Carnival. It's a time where people can get crazy, and it's basically, it comes also from the Latin semel in anno licet insanire, which means that once a year it's fine to get crazy. One of the jokes, the most popular jokes during the Venice Carnival was the eggshells. These eggshells, these empty eggshells, were usually filled with rose water perfume, but in some cases they were filled with like dangerous substance and smelly substance. For instance, ink was one of the substances used, and then these eggshells were thrown literally over people. Let's see together the masks. As I mentioned, masks were already in use in the 13th century. And as I mentioned also, during Carnival, you could do what you wanted, kind of what you wanted. The sumptuary laws, there were laws for the purpose of restraint, luxury and extreme extravagance, were suspended during Carnival, and people could dress as they liked. Gambling that was usually illegal became legal during Carnival. But let's see together what the most popular kinds of masks that you can find in the Carnival. The first is the first picture on your left is called the Colombina. This is a half mask that covers only your eyes, nose, and upper cheeks, and it's held up to the face by a baton, and it's usually highly decorated. Is named after a character in the Commedia dell'arte, which was an Italian comedy really very popular in Europe between 17th and 18th century, where Colombina was this maidservant and a soubrette. The second one is the plague doctor, Medico della Peste, which I think is going to be probably really popular during this Halloween this year. I heard a lot of people that are going to dress up in Medico della Peste. Originally, this mask was really created by a French physician in the 17th century, Charles Delorme, to really be a tool to prevent the spread of disease. And then it became part of the Venice Carnival. The most iconic mask of the Carnival is the one that you see in the picture below, that it's called the face, il volto, because it covers completely your face and you cannot get recognized wearing this mask. It's usually made of thin porcelain or nowadays even in plastic, and is secured to the back by a ribbon, highly decorated again. And it's usually worn with a triangle shaped head that is called tricorn. The one on the picture on your right is called Arlecchino. Again, this is a character from the Commedia dell'arte, where it's very colorful because Arlecchino was this noble, savage, full of emotion and feelings, always confused. I'm going to show you a video of the Venice Carnival where you can see what happens in the city. And in the video, you'll see also a lot of these masks that we just talked about. And the working months on what you saw in the video. But as I mentioned, the Carnevale, it's an event not only in Venice, but all over Italy. And I found this picture of myself. This is Carnevale, probably 1989. And as you can see, I was dressed up as this damsel, not in distress, but I thought it was a funny addition to the class. Another really nice event to be in Venice for is definitely the Biennale. Biennale refers to an arts organization based in Venezia, and is the name of the original and principal biennial exhibition presented by this organization. The organization changed its name from Biennale to Biennale Foundation in 2009, and the exhibition is now called the Art Biennale. It's basically a contemporary visual art exhibition, and it's the original Biennale on which other contemporary exhibitions around the world have been modeled. The first Biennale was opened on April 30, 1895 by the Italian king and queen, Umberto I and Margherita di Savoia. And at that time, it was seen by over 200,000 visitors. The Biennale is based in a park called the Giardini, which means gardens, which is an area of parkland in the historical city of Venezia that was created by Napoleon. The Giardini today houses 30 permanent national pavilions. They are property of the individual countries and are managed by their Ministry of Culture. Many famous artists participate to the Biennale, from Gustav Klimt to Renoir, Picasso, Magritte, Rauschenberg. Peggy Guggenheim was invited to exhibit her personal collection during the Biennale in 1948. So the main goal of the Biennale is to basically establish a new market of contemporary art. So this is a must for contemporary art lovers and contemporary artists as well. The Peggy Guggenheim collection, it's definitely something that I would recommend to visit in Venezia. The collection is housed in this beautiful palace that is called Palazzo Venier dei Leoni. This is an 18th century palace, which was the home of Peggy Guggenheim, the American heiress. She began to display her private collection of modern artworks to the public first seasonally in 1951. And then after her death in 1979, the collection passed to the Solomon Guggenheim Foundation, which opened the collection year-round from 1980 on. The collection includes works of Italian futurists and American modernists, from Cubism to Surrealism and Expressionism. Peggy Guggenheim collected artworks mostly between 1938 and 1946. The museum has lots of visitors every year, over 500,000. And there's so many artists represented in the collection. Since 1985, the United States has selected the foundation to operate the U.S. pavilion of the Venice Biennale. And those are only 3 examples of artists in the collection. The first is Salvador Dali with the Birth of Liquid Desire. And then we have Marcel Duchamp with The Sad Man in a Train, and Giorgio De Chirico with The Nostalgia of a Poet. But the collection is really, really interesting, and it has other artists like Picabia, Miro, Picasso, Max Ernst, and Giacometti, and Klee, and Magritte, and Pollock, and many, many others. So I definitely recommend to see the Peggy Guggenheim collection. Speaking of tourism, one of the things that it's really dear to me, a topic that is really dear to me, is how sustainable is tourism in Venice. I don't know if you ever been there, and I don't know what kind of experience you had. But keep this in mind, Venice sees between 22 and 30 million tourists per year. And the city of Venezia, it's only the historical center, it's only 3 square miles. It's basically half the size of Central Park. So you can imagine how crowded the city is on a daily basis. And so this tourism that happens in mass, of course, is a resource for the city, because if you can imagine that the hotels and restaurants and stores, they live literally out of this tourism. At the same time, recently it became also an issue. And this mass tourism is one of the reasons why the Venice population dropped from 170,000 inhabitants in 1951 to less than 50,000 in 2019. So for Venetians, it became really impossible to live in the center of the city because of this mass tourism. One important thing to consider is the cruise ship business. For about 11 months a year, Venezia assists to this like almost daily gigantic wave of people arriving in the city from these cruise ships. The pictures that I saw, that I put in the presentation, they're almost scary to me, to see these gigantic ships literally going like so close to the center of the city. There was a lot of accident happening also because of these gigantic ships. So these tourists from the cruise ships are in the city only for a few hours. And of course, as you can imagine, they're like rushing around and trying to see to see as much as possible in only a few hours. So it becomes impossible, I think, to really appreciate the city and all its beauty. Because of this situation, the UNESCO put Venezia in 2017 in the danger list. And the UNESCO is pushing, of course, the Italian government to generate like laws to protect and improve the situation of tourism in Venice. With the interruption of tourism because of the COVID-19, Venezia came back to a certain like normality, and it really came back to life. We know that now with COVID-19, the water in the lagoon is much cleaner, to the point that dolphins came back to the lagoon in Venice. And Venetians are able to enjoy the city again. So definitely what's going to happen in the future after the COVID, probably there's going to be a cap on numbers of tourists allowed in the city, with possibly, advanced registration. And of course, probably no more cruise ships, but the Italian government is working right now on a few adjustments. Speaking of cruise ships, even the artist Banksy took this problem very seriously. And he basically crushed the Biennale because he was never invited. And he created a video that I'm going to show you right now to protest against the cruise ships. If you don't know Banksy yet, he's a contemporary street artist and activist. He became really important, really famous lately, but he's active since 1998. We don't know his real identity. We know that he's from England, probably from the Bristol area, but he became really, really famous all over the world for his stencil technique, combined with graffiti that are always really, really political. So let's see together what Banksy did when he crashed the Biennale. To go through some of the scary stories and legend about Venezia, because as you know, Venezia is known to be a haunted city. I'm going to try to go quickly. The first picture on your left is Palazzo Dario. Palazzo Dario is in the Grand Canal. It's a beautiful palace, as you can see from the photo, but it's also known to be cursed, and it's known also like the palace that kills. The legend says that whoever bought or lived in this palace died in an accident, or it was murder. The curse began on the 15th century with the suicide of the daughter of a merchant, Giovanni Dario. And from that moment on, there's a series of violent deaths associated to this palace. Some say that at one point Woody Allen was interested in buying this palace, but as soon as he found out about the curse, he changed his mind. The second legend, scary legend, is about Biagio the butcher. This is also a 15th century legend. Biagio was known for his delicious sausages all around the city. Until one day a woman discovered a small piece of a human finger inside one of these delicious sausage. So the police raided the butcher shop, where they found like human remains of various children turned into food by the butcher. And of course, this is a legend. Biagio was beheaded in San Marco Square, and his house was turned down. But the residents of the area still have been known to hear the voices of crying children late at night echoing along the canal. So this is a scary part of the city to be at night, definitely. I'm going to skip the Palazzo Mastelli. I'm going to tell you the story. Maybe I can email it to you. And I'm going to tell you the one about the Malibran Theater, which is connected to Marco Polo, the Italian explorer. So when Marco was in China, he fell in love for this beautiful Chinese girl who was the daughter of the great emperor. He married her, and he decided to bring her in Venice with him. But the girl was unfortunately really sad because he was missing his country, his family. And because of her sadness, the legend said that Marco Polo's sister never liked the Chinese girl. And when Marco was captured during a battle, the sister lied and told the Chinese girl that Marco was dead. And so the girl was so desperate that she decided to commit suicide. And today people claim that you can still see her white figure floating in the air next to the Malibran Theater. And if you hear closely, you can hear the faint sound of this Chinese music all around the theater as well. Fun fact is that those are all legends, but then when the theater was doing some excavation to renew the theater itself, they discovered the body of an Asian woman burying the foundation and wearing a tiara. So this is really interesting. I'm going to go quickly through the Poveglia Island, which is an island in the lagoon that is known to be haunted for centuries. Mostly because between the Black Plague and the fact that in more modern times the island was an asylum, the legend says that over 160 people died in the island, and the spirit of many of these people is still wandering inside and outside the buildings of this island. From 1969, the access to the island is forbidden. However, there is once in a while these brave groups of young people. They find their way inside the island, and if you want to have fun one day, you can check YouTube and see some of these videos of these adventure young people. Let's see. Okay, the last 2 minutes, I'm sorry, I had so many information and things that I want to share with you. I want to show you what you can eat and drink in Venice. Being in the lagoon, of course, you will find seafood delicious. But I want to show you a video, a really brief video of Rick Steves, our friend, that is trying cicchetti in Venice. And you could drink and eat in the Caffè Florian, which is the oldest cafe in Europe with a rich history of guests. And this is really important to me. It was the only cafe in the world that to allow women inside at that time. It was not allowed anywhere else but here. So I'm going to leave you with a few curiosities about Venezia. The word ciao in Italian, it comes from the Venetian language. It derives from the phrase "xiao su," literally meaning "I'm your slave." Slave in this case used as a servant, and then it evolved in Italian language. Venezia has 300 gardens. As I mentioned to you, it's half the size of Central Park. It has the smallest street on planet, which is the picture on your right. It's Calle Varisco, and it only measures 53 centimeters. Venezia has 417 bridges. It is forbidden to bike, skate, or roller skate in Venezia. And the speed limit, it's only 5 to 7 kilometers per hour. So this is the end of today. I don't know if you have any question. We still have, well, like 1 minute, but I can stay longer if you have questions for me.
Benedetta?
Yes.
With respect to the cruise ships?
Yes.
I read recently that there's a problem in New York Harbor with the cruise ships because of all the diesel fumes they give off. I would assume that's the same in Venice.
Yeah, probably, because as I mentioned, since they don't have cruise ships anymore, the water in the lagoon, is totally clean right now. So they definitely have to do something with these gigantic ships. Yeah, I think it's a similar problem, Linda, definitely.
How deep are the canals?
That's a good question. I don't know, but I can find out for you. I think it varies, but they're not really deep. And that's the reason why the gondolas have the flat bottom.
It's kind of amazing that the cruise ship can go in the canal.
Yes. It's really amazing. Yeah, those pictures are really scary to me, to see this gigantic, like.
What a shame. Oh my God. It's terrible.
Do the gondoliers own their own boats?
I'm sorry?
Do the gondoliers own their own boats, or is that a city-owned?
No, they do. They actually do. Yes. And Venetians usually own also their own boat, because it's the only way you can go around.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So instead of parking your car when you go home from work, you park your boat. That's what they do.
Benedetta?
Yes.
I seem to recall from our last visit to Italy that there's a restricted number of gondoliers, that you have to go through a process to be a gondolier.
Yes, definitely. It's like, it's like taxi drivers in New York. It's pretty much the same thing. I'm not sure what the number is, but yes, that is the case. Yeah.
My impression about the black gondolas was used for funerals mostly.
Well, so the color black at that time was not associated with death. the color of that and mourning at that time was the red color. So black was considered the color of elegance, and that's why the gondolas are black. Then I'm sure they were using those for funerals as well back in the 18th century. That's very possible, but that's not the reason why they're black.
I was wondering if anyone ever saw the movie with Julie Christie called Don't Look Now. It was made in Italy, in Venice. Mm-hmm. It's a great movie from the 70s. It was with Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie.
Oh, I've seen it. Oh, I've seen
Wasn't that a great movie?
Yes.
Is that kind of like thriller, like scary?
Yes, it's scary. He dies in one of these buildings, and I thought that's special building that Woody Allen wanted to buy. I thought that maybe it was made in that building where he bleeds to death from the first floor or something.
Watch the movie. You said Don't Look Now, right?
Yes. Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you show the slide that had the drink recipe on it?
Yes, absolutely. Let's see. You don't see it now, right?
No.
Okay, wait 1 second, because I had the recipe right there. So it's 1/3. It's really simple recipe. Do you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. 1/3 Aperol soda, 1/3 Prosecco, 1/3 seltzer, and then ice and orange slice. It's really bitter, so you have to like bitter, bitter taste.
Thank you.
I have a recipe for Prosecco, and I'm not quite sure what that is. Do you?
Yeah, you can do many different drinks with Prosecco and add in like, juices, and in this case, Aperol soda as well.
Okay, I have to look it up. I wonder if it's something like Campari.
Oh, the Campari, it's similar to the Aperol soda. It's still bitter.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bitter, yes. I know Campari, but not Prosecco so much.
It looks like in Italy we have a thing for like bitter taste things. I really love bitter stuff. And I found that my American friends, sometimes they're like, oh my gosh, this is too much.
Prosecco is like an Italian champagne. It's bubbly.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll have to try
it. Yes, it's a dry, sparkling wine. Yeah.
Benedetta, I have a question about the pandemic. So we were planning on doing a reunion again because a couple of friends, we were in Venice. We were in Italy for like almost 3 weeks. And we were going to go again in the spring 2021.
Yeah.
Right now, are they quarantining folks, or they're not allowing Americans into Italy? Is there
So I went there for 5 weeks this past July when the numbers were down, but we still had to quarantine from this country. So I quarantined for 14 days. Right now, the quarantine in Italy is down to 10 days. It's a new thing. But hopefully in the spring, we'll have a vaccine and we'll be able to travel again. But if you go right now, I think you have to quarantine for 10 days and then you have to get tested as well. But hopefully, numbers, unfortunately, are going up again. We're talking about 10,000 every day in Italy right now. When I went in July, it was down to 200. So it was really, really safe. Yeah. So I really hope you can go. I really, really hope.
Yeah, we're hoping. Yeah, we planned this. We've been planning this for a year now. And we'll see what we're going by ship. Actually, we're actually doing a cruise.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not letting they're not letting Americans in anywhere. So we're wondering if we're just going to be riding around on a ship.
Unless we get a vaccination by election day, that's possible. Just around the bend.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, Lord, don't get on a ship till we're done with COVID.
I know, we're all done, right? Yeah, we need to go back and travel as much as we can. I love to do it. But again, I was lucky enough to be able to go this July. I was like, I didn't know until the very last minute if we were able to go. And I was only able to go because I have family and we're citizen. That's the only reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you've all been in Venice.
Yes, that was my favorite.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's so unique.
Yeah.
I went into a shop in Venice, and I'm always like a bull in a china shop. And I got in and we were looking for, my friend was looking for Murano beads to make stuff. We get in this shop and I turn around, I knocked the whole shelf down of beads. Ooh. And the shop owner was so sweet. I went in there trying to speak a little Italian, so she was happy with that, you know. And I knocked down this shelf with beads, and beads were flying everywhere, and she was so gracious. She picked up all the beads. I was like,
I'm glad.
I bought something just so I wouldn't feel bad, and I left the store.
Yes.
It's funny. It can happen, you know. It happens.
Oh boy.
So do you have any question about the M.O.S.E? Or I mean, it was pretty clear how it works, and it's really a good hope for the city as well.
Mm.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can we look forward to seeing you next week again? We have one more week.
So next week we're going to travel to Florence, to Firenze, which is I consider Firenze my city because I'm from Tuscany and I live only 40 minutes away. So every time we were skipping school in high school, you know, we were going to Florence. So that's I consider Florence my city. So we'll have fun. For the next 2 classes, we'll be in Florence, and then we'll end in Rome. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. I look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank
you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Rita. I saw you, Rita. I'm so happy you're here.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. I love Venice. I've been there several times.
Oh, you've been? Yes.
Yes.
And the Peggy Guggenheim Museum is wonderful, and the restaurants around it are wonderful.
They are. The food is pretty good, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Very nice. Bye. I'll see you soon.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Arrivederci. Bye.
Arrivederci.
Bye-bye.